Let's talk proactive stings and how they're different from other operations that some people have some concerns about. So I have received a number of, I would call them pointed comments, ranging from pointed comments to harassment, talking about stings and talking about um, vigilante actions against people they think are like me and various other things that the troll community is very interested in and legitimate viewers are interested in as well. So I want to separate out the reason for this channel, and that is not to make excuses for people who would harm children. Certainly not. I've made that point I don't know how many times. But I think it's very, very important for you to understand what we are up against with proactive stings because they violate our constitutional rights. They violate our privacy by intruding not in secret lives where we're attempting to harm people, but in very vulnerable situations where people are not trying to hurt anybody. They're just trying to get their needs met in a lawful and honest way. But of course, they attract a number of people who are from fetishists to drug and alcohol abusers and addicts to people who like to do threesomes to people who just are into cross dressing. I mean, there's all manner of things. Not to mention people who just want either a hookup or a long-term relationship. And there are people who do want long-term relationships on these dating platforms that I often will talk about as playgrounds for police doing proactive stings. And I think 2019 or 2020, Bumble did a study, and what they found is that a number of people who were on these sites were not interested in sex quite so much as they were interested in friendship. Now, there are variations, obviously. There are some sites that are only for sex, there are others that are really not. There's some sites that like younger and older, there's some sites that like BDSM. The point I'm making is these are all legitimate activities among adults. And even among those who would attack me for pointing this out and dealing with an uncomfortable subject, it's hilarious that some of these people, when we look into their background, well, they have a lot to answer for. And they frequently spend a lot of time both attacking and defending themselves. I try to bring some parity to it and show how your rights are actually being violated by government agents, otherwise known as the police, and what you can do about it. So now that we got that out of the way, let's talk about the proactive stings, the issue that we have the most um, offense to, I guess. And with the proactive stings, what you have is a situation where truly, it's mind-boggling about how these folks have gotten, these police have gotten so far along from 50 years ago, where none of this would have been tolerated in any kind of a legitimate forum through the mail or whatever. But somehow in the digital age, there's so much crap out there. There's so many terabytes, et cetera, of information. There's so many platforms now. There's so many sites that the courts are willing to allow police to enter into these dark zones and to do pretty much whatever they want. And I would not see anywhere where most judges are on top of any of this. They're not technology experts. They don't understand what's really happening on these sites. And they certainly are not sensitive enough to consider that their primary obligation, which is to make sure that police follow the law and the Constitution, they are totally abdicating that responsibility. So what is a proactive sting, first of all, before I get into how they're doing that? A proactive sting is a sting. It's to be separated from the reactive version that you know better. The reactive being you get a tip, you hear that somebody is doing something that they shouldn't be doing, you send the police over, the police investigate, first of all, and then they make an arrest. They investigate and they make an arrest if an arrest is warranted. That's how it has worked forever. So now we have these proactive stings, and the way they work is quite different. A proactive sting works where the police hang out like they do on the corner over here, looking for speeders. And in the process of looking for speeders, what they do is they attempt to wait there and see what's going on and then move into action. And they do their paperwork and they do, I've done some of the ride alongs with these many years ago. That's what they do. That's what they claim they do when they're online in the digital format, when they're on dating sites, when they're on other types of sites, when they are working very, very hard to make sure that they are working to protect all of us, they claim. So they sit there on these dating sites, they sit there on these social media platforms, and they wait, they tell us. So, yeah, you just wait. They just sit there, they say. They just wait. But they don't. What they do is they create an elaborate scheme and then they run the scheme. The scheme is pre planned. They know exactly what they're going to do at every moment. They do lengthy training sessions throughout the United States through federal, state, and local agencies. Through the National Association of Missing and Exploited Children is in on it as well. They're part of the ICAC family. And what they do is they develop a way to make sure in their mind or what their public um, propaganda is that they're protecting children. But they don't wait for something to happen because, as some people have said, like John MBA, who's a government agent, has said, um, we aren't going to wait for our child to be harmed. We're going to move into action, which might make sense, but you have to get to a point where a child is in imminent danger. And how is a child in imminent danger when there is no child to begin with? So the first step here is they come onto a social media platform like a dating app and or a gaming platform or something, and they do it often in violation of the terms of service of that dating platform. So, I've been told several times, oh, that doesn't matter. Police can do that. They can violate the law. They can violate the contract. Well, if that were the case, it would say in the contract that they could do that. Specifically, in many of these terms of services we've looked at, it specifically says that police cannot do what they do. Now, who's going to enforce that? It's up to the platform to go after the police. And why should they if they have provided an environment to get free policing? If it's a wink, wink, nod, nudge, nudge kind of thing, who knows what their arrangement is, but we've reached out to their legal departments and been absolutely stymied. So they know about this, it's reasonable to assume, and these platforms have done nothing about it. Now, we have had some situations, however, where that is starting to change. A number of years ago, I pointed out Facebook went after the police, and what they did was go after them and say, hey, you're on this platform doing something we don't want you to do, and please desist. And it was a big battle. They did not want to do that. The police did not want to stop. They came to some kind of a detente, but it wasn't exactly what they would expect, unfortunately. So we also have seen Congress recently take action because parents have been screaming about these platforms not doing anything to police material for children and to keep children safe. We've seen the head of Telegram and the head of Snap be sued. Actually, Snap be sued. Telegram's head be detained in France because their platforms are being used for illegal activities or alleged illegal activities. Um, so perhaps it's changing, but what they're not doing is going after the police for doing this, unfortunately. So, how do the police run their proactive stings? Again, proactive means that you're going to do something to prevent something from happening. And usually, what the prevention has been is like the cop on the corner. So I'll make that analogy. The cop stands around the corner or at the bottom of the hill to see if somebody's racing down or racing around the corner, and then they grab them. Okay, fine. That's fine. That's fair. You can see them. They're out and open. You can see the signs are clearly posted what the law is. Fine. So what are they doing online? They're making a fake profile, violating the law. They don't violate the law sitting on the corner. It's contract law. It's a term of service. There's no warning that they're there. There's no posted signs as there is out here. So they sit there and they wait, but they don't, because the next step they do is they create a fake profile and they put somebody's face. Now they very often have said in court cases that this is a face of a real police officer or a reverse aged police officer where they downgrade the age through technology, or the real photo of a real police officer when that person was a child. They've done all three of those. Okay, so um, clearly violating the terms of service that says impersonation is not allowed, clearly violating many state laws which say impersonation is not allowed, and federal law which says impersonation is not allowed. It's not allowed for the other users on the site to impersonate someone on penalty of legal action if not being banned from the site. So why is it for police? There is no color of law exception that is a legal exception in the law which allows for the police to do that. There's no such thing. But again, courts have allowed police to get away with it, and we've seen over and over again, if police can get away with something, they push and push and push until the courts finally say, yeah, enough with that. That's what they do. And they've done it over and over and over again in many, many situations. So for those of you who are like, oh no, police don't do that, and then you read me with the textbook definition what the police is supposed to do, save it, because they do that. And anybody who's encountered them, any criminal defense attorney, and they know that this is so. So take it up with them. So they create a fake profile and then they go hunting. That's the third step. Violate terms of service, create a fake profile, and then they go hunting. And how do they go hunting? Increasingly, they go hunting because they are looking for somebody to be interested, right? They have posted the age as adult and they have not posted the age at all, as they did in my case, I think because of incompetence, because Detective Robert M. Bauer, this was the first time he had used this particular dating site or any dating site, and he didn't know what he was doing. That's what he told me. So there you have it. So you do that, and then you go hunting. You approach people. Now, they claim routinely that they do not approach people and that people approach them. Both are true. But in fact, increasingly, they approach people because people are onto the fact that police are on these sites sometimes. People are not as interested in younger people or in something that they say, or frankly, police don't want to wait on the corner. It's kind of boring waiting on the corner down there. So it's the same online. It's boring just sitting there and getting nothing. So they approach the person over and over again. They have said that, okay, that they don't do it, and then in court or under oath or in the screenshots that they provide in discovery, they're the ones doing that. Okay, so they do that. And how do they approach you? They don't say, "Hey, are you interested in underage?" You would think that's what they would say. Are you interested? No, they claim in that third step that they are an adult. And only after they've exchanged many, many, many messages, they will say, oh, by the way, I'm younger. Or they will bait the trap. They will say that they are a mom who has two children. And they won't come right out and say it. This will go on for a while, and they're very interested. And then, of course, you ask, well, how old are the daughters? Maybe you told me you were 24. How old could they be? Oh, I'm actually 42. My daughters are younger. They never come right out and just say, "You want to my kids?" Okay, it takes a while. because they want to bait that hook so that they can go to the judge and say, hey, judge, this guy was talking for weeks on it, hours and hours. Look at all the messages they used expressing interest. When in fact, curiosity is not necessarily interest in having sex with children. Curiosity of what are you talking about is not the same. So, again, remember what I said, that this is a proactive sting? They're waiting for something to happen. No waiting here. They're diving right in. Okay? The fourth step is that they bait the hook. They change the age abruptly on you. So when they change the age abruptly, you're in a position where you're stunned, you're surprised, you're amazed. Now, they contend, and some trolls on here contend, there's no way you could be that surprised. No way it wouldn't happen. And I really want people to seek these trolls out and play a trick on them and see if they're surprised or see if they get it right away. My guess is they don't get it right away. So here you have people who are creating this environment uh, for the sole purpose of protecting children. So there's no real child involved. We're not answering an urgent call to protect a child, and, which they say, by the way, is internet crimes against children's primary purpose, rescuing real children. But most of their work is in the proactive end. That's something you need to understand. Why? Because it's lucrative, because they have it down to a turnkey system. Why would they do it otherwise? Maybe they want to tell you that the situation of child predation on dating sites is actually not as bad, or it's actually not as bad. They want to tell you it's really, really bad. I don't know what the deal is on it. They are not forthcoming explaining it. And you know that if it was as grand as they claimed, they wouldn't be hiding their statistics. They'd be bringing them right out, and they don't. They won't, they don't, and we've approached them any number of times. Of course, I'll be talking about the funding matrix and their real motivation here in an upcoming episode. So that's number four. They bait the hook, they change the age, and then they take advantage of your confusion, your surprise. And if you don't immediately disengage, okay, it's one thing if you say, oh, yum, yum, great, I'm interested. How old? 12? Good. Absolutely. When can we set it up? But that's not what people do most of the time. Okay. But they expect you to disengage because they played this little game on you, this little ruse on you. Okay. They expect you to disengage. It's on you to disengage in these proactive stings. It's not on them to not run the gig to begin with. Okay, it's not on them to sit back in a proactive sting because child predation is so rampant. It's everywhere. All they had to do was sit back and wait. But no, they don't sit back and wait. They goose it. They make sure that they continue to keep it going. So then the fourth or the fifth step is they gather all the information to try to get you to meet. And if you convince yourself that this is a role playing situation, somebody's playing, a younger version of naughty nurse or something like that, right? Then they come and they get you. And so the question then is, at the end, well, we're going to nail you because you expressed an interest, therefore you showed a predisposition to do it. Now, if they had left you alone, you wouldn't have shown any predisposition in many, many of these cases. Not all of them. Not all of them. To be sure, there are people who do this, but the vast majority of us didn't. And so you don't have a predisposition to do that. And they attack you anyway and claim that you did. So now they have all the elements. They're a 5-step process. Okay? They move in for the arrest. They've created the entire scenario on what was supposed to be a proactive situation. We're just sitting there and waiting, they said. Patiently waiting, twiddling our thumbs, waiting for something to happen. But that's not what happened, is it? Not at all. And so, those of you who want to argue that there are real pedophiles out there and that me and the people I'm representing out here are, well, just keep in mind, folks, that this is something that they're doing with increasing frequency, with increasing sophistication. They're catching the elderly, they're catching the demented, they're catching people who have mental and emotional problems, they're catching the autistic, they're catching the people with intellectual disabilities. They're catching the Romeo and Juliet cases, okay? They're catching teachers, coaches. They're catching anybody they can in there, and they're destroying lives. And you can keep deluding yourself into thinking this isn't happening, but it is. And the collateral consequences go far into and far beyond the sex offender registry. They go into cases like mine where they took my pension away. They go into cases where they're destroying people's lives, they're harassing people. People are committing suicide. And you have to ask yourself, if it's proactive and they're just sitting there, how are all these things happening? Maybe they should work with us and do a real proactive sting or two where they just sit there. We would love to join them where we could see exactly what they're doing and observe their clean, just professional police work. Well, we know that they've expanded out to work with vigilantes who are not sworn law enforcement officers who don't have a tenth of the training, that they are encouraging these same groups when they're not actively working with them, and worse. So get informed, folks, because it's going to get worse. Not only are they violating your privacy and intruding in a very personal area of people's lives, their sexual life and their dating life, but they're also violating the Fourth Amendment in the digital age. They're violating First Amendment right to free speech, and they're doing it with great alacrity. So it's time that you actually looked into it and stop lumping everything together and understanding exactly what's going on out there. Because the name calling that some of you are doing, it's getting old. It's getting old, and I've heard from one or two of you where you had one particular opinion about this, namely that there's a pedophile on every corner, and then it happened to somebody you knew, and now your viewpoint is different. And unfortunately, that's always the case, isn't it? For ICAC Unpacked, I'm Norman Michael Asian for the 18th day of October 2019.